Hi, this is Shannon from No Shelf Control. Thanks for joining me on the channel again tonight. I've been thinking about all of the tremendous books that have been released in early 2023 and realized that there are a lot of them that I'm looking forward to and haven't talked about here on the channel. So I thought I would start with early January and we could talk about the books that released in early January that you aren't going to want to miss. So let's get started. The first one that I want to talk about is called The New Life. It's by Tom Crew. It's published by Scribner and it's 400 pages. It released on January the 3rd. I'll read to you a little bit about what it's about. It says, 2 Victorian marriages, 2 dangerous love affairs, 1 extraordinary partnership. London, 1894. After a lifetime spent navigating his desires, John Addington, married to Catherine, has met Frank, a working-class printer. Meanwhile, Henry Ellis's wife Edith has fallen in love with Angelica, and Angelica wants Edith all to herself. When in 1894, John and Henry decide to write a revolutionary book together, intended to challenge convention and the law, they are both caught in relationships stalked by guilt and shame. Yet they share a vision of a better world, one that will expand possibilities for men and women everywhere. Their daring book threatens to throw John and Henry and all those around them into danger. How far should they go to win personal freedoms? And how high a price are they willing to pay for a new way of living? I just think this one is so interesting because it talks about non-same-sex relationships in the late 1800s. And so I think that that's going to be fascinating. I'm really curious to see how this plays out. They're writing a book challenging sort of cultural norms while both involved in relationships that are, sort of non-standard for the time. So I'm really interested to see what that's about and what Tom Crew has to say about the nature of those kinds of relationships in the late 1800s. So that is the first book that I wanted to talk about. The second book I wanted to talk about is All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. This one is published by Minotaur Books. It was published January 10th and it's 326 pages. This one is a little bit more of a thriller and it says, 1 year ago, Isabel Drake's life changed forever. Her toddler son Mason was taken out of his crib in the middle of the night while she and her husband were asleep in the next room. With little evidence and few leads for the police to chase, the case quickly went cold. However, Isabel cannot rest until Mason is returned to her, literally. Except for the occasional catnap or small blackout where she loses track of time, she hasn't slept in a year. Isabel's entire existence now revolves around finding him, but she knows she can't go on this way forever. In hopes of jarring loose a new witness or buried clue, she agrees to be interviewed by a true crime podcaster, but his interest in Isabel's past makes her nervous. His incessant questioning, paired with her severe insomnia, has brought up uncomfortable memories from her own childhood, making Isabel start to doubt her recollection of the night of Mason's disappearance, as well as second-guess who she can trust, including herself. But she's determined to figure out the truth, no matter where it leads. I just thought this one sounded riveting. It's tough for me to read books about missing children. It was even tougher when my son was younger, but, I sort of hate the topic, but this just sounds absolutely fascinating. She's not sleeping. She's starting to lose it. And how is this all going to unravel? And what does this true crime podcaster, have to do with it, and how is he going to play into it? I just thought, I'm a big fan of the Serial podcast. I watched that or listened to that when it first came out and then listened to subsequent seasons and have found lots of entertainment in true crime podcasts. So that aspect of this appeals to me as well. So that is All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. The next book I want to talk about is called Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. I'm sure you've heard of Mary Kubica. She writes lots of sort of thriller, psychological type of books. She wrote Local Woman Missing, if you have read that one. This one was published January 10th. So again, another one from early January by Park Row, and it's 320 pages. And here's what it says about this one. 2 couples, 2 close friends, 1 missing husband. Jack Hayes is missing. This much is certain. At first, his wife Nina thinks he's blowing off steam at a friend's house after their heated fight the night before. But then a day goes by, 2 days, 5, and Jake is still nowhere to be found. Lily Scott, Nina's friend and co-worker, thinks she may have been the last to see Jake before he went missing. After Lily confesses everything to her husband Christian, the two decide that nobody can find out what happened leading up to Jake's disappearance, especially not Nina. But Nina is out there looking for her husband, and she won't stop until the truth is discovered. So another thriller, psychological type book. Mary Kubica is great for this kind of stuff, and I was excited to see that she had published a new book in early January. So I don't think you're going to want to miss that one if that is your kind of story. And it's called Just the Nicest Couple, which I think is a really cool title. The next one I want to talk about is called The Survivalists, and it is by Kashana Cauley. It was published, again, January 10th, and it was published by Soft Skull Press, which I think is hilarious. Soft Skull Press. It's 288 pages. And here is, I really love this cover. So it's kind of, it looks like an x-ray, and there's all kinds of stuff in it. And I can't quite figure out what all of the things are or what they're actually x-raying, but it's a very intriguing cover. So here's what we know about the Survivalists. A single Black lawyer puts her career and personal moral code at risk when she moves in with her coffee entrepreneur boyfriend and his doomsday prepping roommates in a novel that's packed with tension, curiosity, humor, and wit from a writer with serious comedy credentials. In the wake of her parents' death, Aretha, a habitually single Black lawyer, has had only one obsession in life: success, until she falls for Aaron, a coffee entrepreneur. Moving into his Brooklyn brownstone to live along with his Hurricane Sandy traumatized, illegal gun stockpiling, optimized soy protein eating, bunker building roommates, Aretha finds that her dreams of making partner are slipping away, replaced by an underground world, one of selling guns and training for a doomsday that's maybe just around the corner. For readers of Victor LaValle's The Changeling, Paul Beatty's The Sellout, and Zakiya Harris's The Other Black Girl, The Survivalists is a darkly humorous novel from a smart and relevant new literary voice that's packed with tension, curiosity, and wit, and unafraid to ask the questions most relevant to a new generation of Americans. Does it make sense to climb the corporate ladder? What exactly are the politics of gun ownership? And in a world where it's nearly impossible for young people to earn enough money to afford stable housing, what does it take in order to survive? So the doomsday aspect of this is really interesting to me, as well as the fact that it's compared to The Other Black Girl and The Changeling. I thought those were both great books. I didn't love Paul Beatty's The Sellout. And so if it's that tone, it might not end up being my favorite. But a lot of people love The Sellout, so perhaps that's right up your alley. I'm hoping that it has more in common with The Other Black Girl and The Changeling than The Sellout, but I was really intrigued by the relationship between the two protagonists, and I'll be interested to see how much I enjoy this one. All right, let's talk about the next one. The next one is The Villa. You've probably heard of this one. It's The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. Rachel Hawkins is a similar writer to Ruth Ware. She writes sort of suspenseful kinds of books. She also wrote The Wife Upstairs. That's the one I couldn't think of. The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This book, The Villa, was published January 3rd by St. Martin's Press, and it's 279 pages. So here's a little bit about this one. From New York Times best-selling author Rachel Hawkins comes a deliciously wicked Gothic suspense set in an Italian villa with a dark history. As kids, Emily and Chess were inseparable, but by their 30s, their bond has been strained by the demands of their adult lives. So when Chess suggests a girls' trip to Italy, Emily jumps at the chance to reconnect with her best friend. Villa Estes in Orvieto is a high-end holiday home now, but in 1974, it was known as Villa Rosato and rented for the summer by a notorious rock star, Noel Garden. In an attempt to reignite his creative spark, Noel invites up-and-coming musician Pierce Sheldon to join him, as well as Pierce's girlfriend Mari and her stepsister Laura. But he also sets in motion a chain of events that leads to Mari writing one of the greatest horror novels of all time, Laura composing a platinum album, and ends in Pierce's brutal murder. As Emily digs into the villa's complicated history, she begins to think that there might be more to the story of that fateful summer in 1974. That perhaps Pierce's murder wasn't just a tale of sex, drugs, and rock and roll gone wrong, but that something more sinister might have occurred, and that there might be clues hidden in the now iconic works that Mari and Lara left behind. Yet the closer that Emily gets to the truth, the more tension she feels developing between her and Chess. As secrets from the past come to light, equally dangerous betrayals from the present also emerge, and it begins to look like the villa will claim another victim before the summer ends. So that's 3 highly suspenseful, psychological kinds of books that I've mentioned in a row. And those are not usually my first go-tos. I tend to, as you've heard me say, like the historical novel or the family drama, the generational saga. But I do like these kinds of books. But interestingly, in looking through books that came out in early January, these are 3 of the ones that really appealed to me. So I'll be interested to see what happens with The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. The next one I want to talk about is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. I love the cover on this one. I love the colors. I love the eyes. I think it's very intriguing. And there's a nose ring and a bindi on the 2 different faces. I don't know if you noticed that, but I thought that was really cool. So this one was published January 3rd by Ballantine Books, and it is 352 pages. So here's a little bit about this one. Gita's no-good husband disappeared 5 years ago. She didn't kill him, but everyone thinks she did, no matter how much she protests. But she soon discovers that being known as a self-made widow has some surprising perks. No one messes with her, no one threatens her, and no one tries to marry her. It's even been good for her business. No one wants to risk getting on her bad side by not buying her jewelry. Freedom must look good on Gita because other women in the village have started asking for her help to get rid of their own no-good husbands. But not all of them are asking nicely. Now that Gita's fearsome reputation has become a double-edged sword, she must decide how far to go to protect it, along with the life she's built, because even the best laid plans of would-be widows tend to go awry. So I thought that one was interesting. Having been in India, I love a book set in India, and so I'm very interested in this one. But also just the fact that people think she killed her husband and she's using it to her advantage. I'll be really intrigued to see how that plays out. Okay, next book. And this one, I love the cover. I think the cover is just so beautiful. It's called The Night Travelers by Armando Lucas Correa, who also wrote The German Girl. I have not read that, but it's mentioned on the cover. It was published on January 10th by Atria Books, and it's 368 pages. So, and you'll know by the first sentence why I'm intrigued by this book. 4 generations of women experience love, loss, war, and hope from the rise of Nazism to the Cuban Revolution, and finally the fall of the Berlin Wall in this sweeping novel from the best-selling author of The German Girl. Berlin, 1931. Allie Keller, a talented young poet, is alone and scared when she gives birth to a mixed-race daughter she names Lilith. As the Nazis rise to power, Allie knows she must keep her baby in the shadows to protect her against Hitler's deadly ideology of Aryan purity. But as she grows, it becomes more and more difficult to keep Lilith hidden. So Allie sets in motion a dangerous and desperate plan to send her daughter across the ocean to safety. Havana, 1958. Now an adult, Lilith has few memories of her mother or her childhood in Germany. Besides, she's too excited for her future with her beloved Martin, a Cuban pilot with strong ties to the Batista government. But as the flames of revolution ignite, Lilith and her newborn daughter Nadine find themselves at a terrifying crossroads. Berlin, 1988. As a scientist in Berlin, Nadine is dedicated to ensuring the dignity of the remains of all those who were murdered by the Nazis. Yet she has spent her entire lifetime avoiding the truth about her own family's history. It takes her daughter, Luna, to encourage Nadine to uncover the truth about the choices her mother and grandmother made to ensure the survival of their children. And it will fall to Luna to come to terms with a shocking betrayal that changes everything she thought she knew about her family's past. Separated by time, but united by sacrifice, 4 women embark on journeys of self-discovery and find themselves to be living testaments to the power of motherly love. So it's a multi-generational saga about 4 women across time, across countries. It couldn't be more up my alley, really. So I'm hoping that it is absolutely delicious, but we will see. Gorgeous cover. So we will check this one out, and I will be sure to come back and let you know what I think, but I hope it's something that you might want to try out. The 8th book on my list that I want to talk about is In the Time of Our History. And this one also has a very pretty cover. It's by Suzanne Parry, published January 3rd, 304 pages by Kensington. And this one, again, is about someone from another country or with a different heritage. And so I sort of love that. Inspired by her own Iranian-American heritage, the acclaimed author weaves a beautifully crafted story of mothers and daughters, secrets and lies, and defying expectations, even when those choices come with an irrevocable cost. 12 months after her younger sister Anahita's death, Mitra Jahani reluctantly returns to her parents' home in suburban New Jersey to observe the Iranian custom of the 1 year. Anna is always in Mitra's heart, though they chose very different paths. While Anna, sweet and dutiful, bowed to their domineering father's demands and married, Mitra rebelled and was banished. Caught in the middle is their mother, Shireen, torn between her fierce love for her surviving daughter and her loyalty to her husband. Yet his callousness, even amid shattering loss, has compelled her to rethink her own decades of submission. And when Mitra is suddenly forced to confront hard truths about her sister's life and the secrets each of them hid to protect others, mother and daughter reach a new understanding and forge an unexpected path forward. Alive with the tensions, sacrifices, and joys that thrum within the heart of every family, In the Time of Our History is also laced with the richness of ancient and modern Persian culture and politics, in a tale that is both timeless and profoundly relevant. So this one has Iran sort of as a background and that Persian culture as something that's going to be investigated here and part of the story of this young woman and her mother. So again, multi-generational daughters and mothers, something I really love. So I wouldn't want you to miss this one. Again, published January 3rd of this year. The 9th book on my list is called The Deluge. And it is written by a man named Stephen Markley. It was published January 10th by Simon & Schuster, and it is a big chunker. It is 896 pages. So this is a big one. Here is what it has to say about this book. From the best-selling author of Ohio, a masterful American epic charting a near future approaching collapse and a nascent but strengthening solidarity. In the first decades of the 21st century, the world is convulsing, its governments mired in gridlock, while a patient but unrelenting ecological crisis looms. America is in upheaval, battered by violent weather and extreme politics. In California in 2013, Tony Pietras, a scientist studying deposits of undersea methane, receives a death threat. His fate will become bound to a stunning cast of characters: a broken drug addict, a star advertising strategist, a neurodivergent mathematician, a cunning eco-terrorist, an actor turned religious zealot, and a brazen young activist named Kate Morris, who in the mountains of Wyoming begins a project that will alter the course of the decades to come. From the Gulf Coast to Los Angeles, the Midwest to Washington, D.C., their intertwined odysseys unfold against a stark backdrop of accelerating chaos as they summon courage, galvanize a nation, fall to their own fear, and find wild hope in the face of staggering odds. As their stories hurtle towards a spectacular climax, each faces a reckoning. What will they sacrifice to salvage humanity's last chance at a future? A singular achievement, The Deluge is a once-in-a-generation novel that meets the moment as few works of art ever have. So the ecological crisis, very interesting to me. The fact that there's a neurodivergent character in the book who's called out as neurodivergent is very interesting to me. I'll be intrigued to find out what that's about and how it plays into the story. An eco-terrorist, so all of these things just intrigue me and make me want to dig into this. I have not read Ohio, but one of the things I love about this book is that it takes place all across the country. And I suppose in 900 pages, you can get all across the country with all of these characters. So I will be ready to check this one out soon. It's called The Deluge by Stephen Markley. Next up is a book called Moonrise over Jessup, and it is written by Jamila Minix. It was published, of course, at the beginning of January, because that's what this video is about, but it was published January 10th by Algonquin Books, and it's 336 pages. Winner of the 2021 Penn Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction, a thought-provoking and enchanting debut about a Black woman doing whatever it takes to protect all she loves at the beginning of the civil rights movement in Alabama. It's 1957, and after leaving the only home she has ever known, Alice Young steps off the bus into the all-Black town of New Jessup, Alabama, where residents have largely rejected integration as the means for Black social advancement. Instead, they seek to maintain and fortify the community they cherish on their side of the woods. In this place, Alice falls in love with Raymond Campbell, whose clandestine organizing activities challenge New Jessup's long-standing status quo and could lead to the young couple's expulsion, or worse, from the home they both hold dear. But as Raymond continues to push alternatives for enhancing New Jessup's political power, Alice must find a way to balance her undying support for his underground work with her desire to protect New Jessup from the rising pressure of upheaval from inside and outside their side of town. Jamila Minix's debut novel is both a celebration of Black joy and a timely examination of the opposing viewpoints that attended desegregation in America. Readers of Britt Bennett's The Vanishing Half and Robert Jones Jr.'s The Prophets will love Moonrise over New Jessup. Well, I loved The Vanishing Half. This also has a vibe that reminds me a little bit of the book by Deshaun Charles Williams that I mentioned to you in a previous video called In West Mills. And that was a favorite book of mine. So that definitely pulls me toward Moonrise over New Jessup. Again, that's by Jamila Minix, and it's called Moonrise over New Jessup. The next one, number 11 on my list, is Reef Road, and that is by Deborah Goodrich Royce. This one, Reef Road, was again published January 10th. It's 320 pages by Post Hill Press. And here's a little bit about this one. When a severed hand washes ashore in the wealthy enclave of Palm Beach, Florida, Now, if that's not enough to get your attention, I'm not sure what will be. The lives of two women, a lonely writer obsessed with the unsolved murders of her mother's best friend, and a panicked wife whose husband has disappeared with their children, collide as the world shudders in the pandemic lockdown of 2020. A young woman's life seems perfect until her family goes missing. A writer lives alone with her dog and collects arcane murder statistics. What each of them stands to lose as they sneak around the do not enter tape blocking Reef Road beach is exposed by the steady tightening of the cincture encircling them. In a nod to the true crime that inspired it, Deborah Goodrich Royce's Reef Road probes unhealed generational scars in a wrenching and original work of fiction. It is both stunning and sexy, and like a bystander surprised by a curtain left open, you won't be able to look away. I love that blurb. I mean, that just draws me in. Whoever wrote that really did a good job with it. I assume that it wasn't the author. It's usually someone with the publisher. But first of all, a book about the pandemic. I haven't read a book set in the pandemic yet, so I am ready to do that. Finally ready to do that. And then the fact that the book is based on a real life situation, but completely fictionalized, I really love that too. So that is Reef Road by Deborah Goodrich Royce. The next one on my list is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. Now, beautiful cover, but I have to admit, it looks like a child's book to me. I assumed when I first saw it that it was going to be some sort of encyclopedia of Tinkerbell and other fairies. So I was really interested when I read the synopsis of this book, and had to check it out. So this one was published January 10th as well by Del Rey Books, and it's 321 pages. Here's a little bit about this one. A curmudgeonly professor journeys to a small town in the far north to study fairy folklore and discovers dark fae magic, friendship, and love in this heartwarming and enchanting fantasy. Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She is the foremost expert on the study of fairies. She is a genius scholar and a meticulous researcher who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party or even get invited to one. And she prefers the company of her books, her dog, Shadow, and the fair folk to other people. So when she arrives in the hardscrabble village of Hrafnsvik, oh my goodness, it's Hrafnsvik, Hrafnsvik. Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townsfolk. Nor does she care to spend time with another new arrival, her dashing and insufferably handsome academic rival, Wendell Bambleby, who manages to charm the townsfolk, get in the middle of Emily's research, and utterly confound and frustrate her. But as Emily gets closer and closer to uncovering the secrets of the hidden ones, the most elusive of all fairies, lurking in the shadowy forest outside the town, she also finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell Bambleby, and what does he really want? To find the answer, she'll have to unlock the greatest mystery of all, her own heart. And so again, we have somebody who's a little bit socially awkward here. And I love that. So I'm interested to see how they portray this character and sort of the love interest Wendell Bambleby, which I think is a great name. I don't know about the village of Hrafnsvik, if I'm even saying that correctly, but interested that she's a scholar on fairies. So I don't know how much of this is magical realism, because obviously I assume fairies don't exist, but she's a genuine scholar on the study of fairies. So really intrigued by this one and can't wait to get my hands on it and find out more. Two more. So number 13 is Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper. Again, we're back to the psychological thriller, mysterious type of title. This one is published, let me see if I can find it. This one was published January 10th as well, It's Mulholland Books and 352 pages. Here's a little bit about Everybody Knows. Welcome to May Pruitt's Los Angeles, where nobody talks, but everybody whispers. As a black bag publicist tasked not with letting the good news out, but keeping the bad news in, May works for one of LA's most powerful and sought-after crisis PR firms, at the center of a sprawling web of lawyers, PR flacks, and private security firms she calls the Beast. They protect the rich and powerful and depraved by any means necessary. After her boss is gunned down in front of the Beverly Hills Hotel in a random attack, May takes it upon herself to investigate and runs headfirst into the Beast's lawless machinations and the twisted systems it exists to perpetuate. It takes her on a roving neon joyride through a Los Angeles full of influencers, pumped full of pills and fillers, sprawling mansions footsteps away from sprawling homeless encampments, crooked cops, and mysterious wrecking crews in the middle of the night. Edgar Award winner Jordan Harper's Everybody Knows is addicting and alarming, a juggernaut of a novel, and an absolute tour de force. It is what the crime novel can achieve in the modern age, portray the human lives at the center of vast American landscapes, and make us thrill at their attempts to face impossible odds. So a crime novel set in LA, and probably as close to horror as I'm going to get, but really, really interesting to me. The influencers and this firm that she calls the Beast, and the fact that her boss is gunned down at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'll be really interested to see how this one is going to play out. All right, last one. The last one for tonight is called The Dream Builders by Ondrila Mukherjee. And again, I'm probably brutalizing that name, but it's Ondrila Mukherjee, I believe. And it's called The Dream Builders. It was published January 10th by Tin House Books, and it's 384 pages. Here's the synopsis of the last one. After living in the U.S. for years, Manika Roy returns home to India to mourn the loss of her mother and finds herself in a new world. The booming city of Frishipur, where her father now lives, is nothing like the part of the country where she grew up. And the more she sees of this new sparkling city, the more she learns that nothing and no one here is as it appears. Ultimately, it will take an unexpected tragic event for Manika and those around her to finally understand just how fragile life is in this city built on aspirations. Written from the perspectives of 10 different characters, Ondrila Mukherjee's incisive debut novel explores class divisions, gender roles, and stories of survival within a society that is constantly changing and becoming increasingly Americanized. It's a story about India today and people impacted by globalization everywhere. A tale of ambition, longing, and bitter loss that asks what it really costs to try and build a dream. So again, another one set in India, which I have a soft spot for. You heard me talk about the book, The Age of Vice, by Deepti Kapoor a few weeks ago. And there are some similarities between these two titles as far as I can tell. But again, I'll read pretty much anything about India, especially modern India and the way it's growing and changing. So this definitely appeals to me, and I hope that it will appeal to you. So those are 14 books that came out at the beginning of January that I didn't want you to miss. Now, I know some of them have been talked about a lot. The Villa in particular comes to mind, but some of these are very much under the radar. And so I hope that me bringing them to you tonight will bring them up for you somewhere on your list and allow you to seek them out and find some more titles that you might love. So thanks for listening to me tonight, and I will be back again soon. Take care. Bye.